We'd like to thank Montecito Bank and Trust for their generous support in making Scam Squad possible.
Sound off.
1, 2.
Sound off.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Scam Squad.
Welcome to Scam Squad. I'm Patty Teal, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Christina Perkins is out of town, and Greg Hans will be co-hosting with me. Greg has had a lot of experience, and we're so happy that he's here today. He obtained a BA in criminal justice from UC Santa Barbara in 1990. Then he was hired by the Santa Barbara Police Department in 1997. While working for the Santa Barbara Police Department, he worked as a patrol officer, a bike foot patrol officer, field training officer, property crimes detective, and was on the SWAT team for over 23 years. He's been working as an investigator for the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office for 3.5 years now, and he's currently assigned to their financial and elder abuse and real estate fraud unit. He's also their firearms gun laws expert. Thank you so much for being here, Greg. What do you have for us today?
We just turned the calendar on another year, and I'm sure most of our viewers are the same as you and I. Cannot believe that 2024 is already gone and we are 6 days into 2025. But what I wanted to talk about is, most of us make New Year's resolutions, and protecting yourself from financial crimes is no different. It's good to make resolutions, and again, even better to stick with them. So I wanted to start with kind of the big one. We all generally commit to working out more. So that got me thinking about the bulletins that I always see in inbox probably once or twice a month. Those are the thieves that target gym lockers. I was just reading one earlier today on my work email regarding thefts up in Northern California from YMCA gym lockers. But hopefully a lot of your listeners and viewers are going to start going to the gym more regularly here, at least in January, and hopefully that continues through December. But be aware that your thieves / scammers know that the lock mechanisms on gym lockers are usually pretty light duty. There are some, nicer ones that have been installed, as things have moved along. But, you'll notice that a lot of them are just, a wood locker with a small rotating hasp, and they're very easy to defeat. The part that goes hand in hand with an easy lock to defeat is the fact that the thieves know that you're probably going to be in the gym for at least a half an hour. Maybe if you're really motivated, you're there for an hour and a half or 2 hours. They know that you're going to be there, and it gives them time to go use your stolen credit cards before you even realize the theft has occurred. So if you're going to go to the gym, our suggestion is to lock your purse, your wallet, your cell phone, whatever you're not going to actually physically have with you in the gym, in the trunk of your car, because that's a much more secure location. But also, just to be safe, when you do get back out to your car, pop your trunk, look through your stuff, make sure that your, credit cards and all of them are there, your driver's license, everything, because with some of these theft groups, they've even figured out that people leave stuff in their trunk. So they'll pop the trunk, they'll flip back to the second or third credit card back, and they'll just take one or two, leave the front ones there. And so even when people open up their wallet, they think, oh, everything's good, because they didn't realize that maybe the second or third card back was gone. So again, it's an unfortunate reality that we live in, but it's really important to, when you get back to your car, check your wallet, check whatever you left in the trunk, and make sure everything is there.
So that is such great advice, because we all start the new year ready to work out, but that would really be a buzzkill if you got your things stolen right out off the bat.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it's unfortunate because it gives them an hour to, basically run up those credit cards before you even know that it's gone.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, until your class ends or you're done weightlifting.
Yeah, exactly.
What other advice do you have for the new year?
All right. So I was thinking about other New Year's commitments that are really good for your finances. And I know you've talked about this before with Tina and probably with Vicky, but we can't stress enough how important it is to check your 3 credit reports really keeping an eye on your credit reports is so important, and especially to recommit to doing that every 4 months in the new year and continuing that on is huge, because that really is where scammers will start to steal your identity. Is if they get information that's in your credit report, then that's where they go from there. So as most people are probably aware, you are eligible to get one free credit report every year from the three major bureaus, which are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Um, and some people mistakenly think that you have to pull all three credit reports when you log in, and that isn't required. So what you can do is, if you commit to checking your Equifax report in January, and then your Experian in May, and then your TransUnion in September, you've spread your three freebies out over the course of 12 months, and you repeat it again.
Oh, I didn't know that. That is really a great tip. Really is.
Yeah, I was always under the impression that I had to do them, and then I realized when I saw the little radio buttons on the freeannualreport.com, I didn't have to choose all three. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that on my own, and realized that it was much better, because every 4 months I got to take a look at my credit. So committing to that is huge, because, as everybody knows, if you find something on there, you can make the um, complaint to the credit bureau and get them to correct it. But what it tells you is that your information's compromised, and you're probably going to need to make a report to law enforcement. But the quicker you catch something, if by chance you catch it, is going to be a lot less work on the front end than if your identity has been completely taken over and you just spend years and years trying to fix it. I'm sure we've all heard horror stories of people that have spent years, seriously years, to try and correct a stolen identity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just a nightmare.
So dovetailing on that, checking your credit report is good, but doing a credit freeze is better. And oftentimes when I talk to people about credit freezes, they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 I have a credit alert on my accounts."
Mm-hmm.
And I have to explain to them that there's a huge difference between a credit alert and a credit freeze.
Mm-hmm.
When your identity, or we call it in the business PII, personally identifying information. When your PII gets compromised in a data breach, you get an email from, your healthcare provider, your internet provider, your cell phone provider, somebody, and they're obligated to notify you that your information got breached. And they're also usually obligated, or under good faith, they offer you the credit fraud alert, free credit fraud
Mm-hmm.
alerts, or free credit monitoring. And so everybody thinks, most people are like, "Yeah, I'll take advantage of that." And they unfortunately get the false sense of security that protects them from being the victim of identity theft. And so I just wanted to talk to people about the difference between a fraud alert, a credit alert, all those different terms that, identity monitoring, those three things are all kind of the same thing. And that is what tells the credit bureaus to keep a closer eye on your account and be more aware of possible fraudulent activity, which is good, but it's not as good as a credit freeze, which is a completely different thing. And I really would like to push people to take the 15 or 20 minutes to set up an account. It does require you to set up an online account with the three bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and then navigate to, or put in their search bars, put in there that you're looking to do a credit freeze. But it used to, if you weren't the victim of identity theft, it used to cost, I think, $25 a year to do a credit freeze. But now, based on new laws put in place by the Federal Trade Commission, they are free. So freezing your credit is free, and unfreezing it is credit, and unfreezing your credit is free. So to understand the difference is, if you have a fraud alert, then the credit bureaus might alert you that somebody's trying to open credit in your name. That's good, but that's going to be reactive. Putting a credit freeze on your account is proactive, meaning that your credit is frozen. Nobody can view your credit report, meaning nobody can open credit. Nobody can take out a mortgage in your name. Nobody can open credit cards. Nobody can, you know, put a cell phone in your name. They even run a credit check on you when you open a new cell phone line. So none of that can be done if your credit is frozen. And so the question often is, well, what if I want to get a new cell phone or open a new credit card, or I need to do a home equity line of credit on my home? It's really very, very simple, because what you do when you create the freeze is you create a PIN for yourself. And if you know you're going to be applying for credit, like a few years back, I went to buy a new car. And as I sat down with the finance manager, they said they were going to run a credit check on me. And I said, okay, all my credit is frozen. Which bureau do you guys use? And they told me. I said, give me 10 minutes. I'm going to call them. I'm going to unfreeze it. How long do you guys think it's going to take to do your credit check? They're like, oh, we'll have it done in a couple hours. So I call in to, I can't remember which bureau it was, but I called in, gave them my PIN, said I'd like to unfreeze my credit. And they said, how long would you like it unfrozen? I said, well, let's do 24 hours. They said, no problem. I did it. I actually got an alert on my phone that my credit was unfrozen. And then I got an alert 24 hours later that the credit was refrozen after the new car company had confirmed that I was credit worthy. So yes, it's an extra step if you're going to need to access your credit. But trust me, that 5 or 10 minutes, the 20 minutes you spend on the front end and the 5 or 10 minutes you spend unfreezing your credit when you need to open a credit card or buy a car or something like that, pales in comparison to the time you'll spend if your identity truly gets compromised and people start opening credit cards, buying cars, opening cell phone accounts, heaven forbid, taking out a second on your house, whatever it might be. The time and effort and heartache you would spend is nothing compared to going to the little bit of effort to do the freeze and the unfreeze. So that is my probably biggest suggestion. If you're going to make a New Year's resolution and you haven't done so already, really, really don't make any more excuses. Go do that.
Oh, that's such great advice. And I think the main thing that stops people from doing that is they're worried that they won't be able to turn it off and on. But
Yeah.
now that you've explained, it really doesn't take very long. So if you know you're going to make a purchase, you can just unfreeze it and then go up, and then freeze it again when you're done. So it doesn't sound that difficult. I have to admit, I haven't done it yet myself, but we often have a regular guest, Judy Crispin Yates, who's a criminologist, and she is definitely always saying the same thing. So it sounds like it's super important.
Yeah. Well, when we log off, make that your list to go do that this afternoon.
Yeah.
It'll be half an
Yeah.
hour of your time, and then you will have much more peace of mind when it comes to, your credit. So it's
Yeah.
time well spent.
Great advice.
I want to go back to one thing when we were talking about running your credit report annually. And I want to remind people how important it is to not go onto a search engine and type in free annual credit report, because you will get myriad offers from all kinds of different scammers who are trying to get you to put in your name, your date of birth, and your social security number. It's so important to go into your search or into your address bar on your browser and type in www.annualcreditreport.com. People fall into the trap of getting lazy, and so they just type in free credit report in
Sure.
their Google search bar, their Yahoo search bar, their
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And if you do it, you can even do a test. You'll see that the one that's sanctioned by the government, the Federal Trade Commission, the one that's required to do it and is actually legally linked to Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, is not the first one that comes up.
Wow.
So people get sucked into putting their PII because they don't type the actual address into their bar. So again, the only one that is sanctioned by the U.S. government and is directly linked to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion is www.annualcreditreport.com.
Do you think that all the other ones that come up are scammers, or are they trying to just charge for your credit report?
It's a
Or,
combination of both. It's,
yeah,
some of them are looking to capture your PII, and some of them are looking to charge a fee uh, for something that they're getting for free. Uh,
sure.
so a lot like, you in the past, some of those scams where the would offer, for a monthly fee, they would send you a list of foreclosures that telling you could buy cheap real estate. Well, all they were doing was charging you for information post, monthly for free by each, county assessor's office. So yeah, I would say it's probably a mix 50-50. But then
Right.
again, those ones that are scamming you on the front side, charging you for something that's for free, they may also be making money on the backside by selling your information on the dark web.
Oh, yeah.
So you
Either way, just type it in. Don't,
yeah, type in annualcreditreport.com and then you're going to the right place.
yeah, that's great. Gosh, you've really given us some great advice for the new year. Anything else?
I really quickly wanted to touch on something that a lot of people um, kind of take for granted and don't even really question. So every, say, 4 years, when what we used to call our ATM card expired, we would get a renewal ATM card. And about probably 20 years ago, the banks figured out that if they added a credit card processing symbol to your ATM card, they could call it a debit card, and that money was linked to your checking or savings account, which has a lot of benefits for people that maybe don't have the ability, don't have good credit, or they don't feel like they do a job of managing a credit where the bill comes once a month. But I wanted to touch on or give some information to people to evaluate whether that's the best option for them. Because we always have to remember that all of these cards are either 15 or 16 digit numbers. And throughout your lifetime, those numbers are going to get compromised. It's important to be vigilant, but also remember that these numbers are just strings. They're algorithm strings of numbers put together by the credit card companies. And the numbers and the strings mean certain things, but the scammers can also use algorithms to figure out, what numbers should go where. So knowing that over the course of your lifetime, your credit cards and your debit card numbers are going to probably get compromised, whether it's by physical theft or by just computer generated numbers generators. They're going to figure it out. The thing that I always keep in mind, and the reason I don't carry a debit card, is because I liken it to going to a casino and gambling. And if I sit down at the blackjack table and I win $100 and I put my original $100 back in my pocket, and now I'm gambling with what we call house money, right? It feels less painful if you lose that money, right? Whereas
Yeah.
it's more painful if you lose your own money. So if you hold a debit card from your bank, if that card or that account number gets compromised, the scammers, the thieves, are stealing your money directly out of your checking or savings account. If your credit card number gets compromised, that's house money. That's money that the credit card company is responsible for until they find out that that's actually your charges. And then at the end of the month, you're responsible to pay your charges. Well, if you find out that there's charges on your account that aren't yours and you notify the credit card company, you're not responsible for paying those charges. Now, the banks will tell you, oh, well, it's fine, because if you report a debit card charge as fraud, we'll put that money back in your account. But I'm betting you've had people on this program and you've seen on the internet and you've heard that's a fight sometimes to get your money put back into your checking or savings account. So my personal feeling is, and oftentimes it's a fight. Like each time my ATM card comes up for renewal, they'll send me a debit card, and I have to call the bank and say, I don't want a debit card, I want an ATM card. Because
Yeah.
if I lose that card, the only way somebody can compromise my checking account is with my PIN. And my PIN,
I've thought about that a lot too, but because, if you do lose it, as you said, even though I think of it as a debit card, anybody can use it as a charge card.
right. And people will say, oh, well, they can't use my debit card because it has a PIN associated with it, and I have to put my PIN in to use it. So it's just as safe as an ATM card. Well, unfortunately, that's not 100% true. So there are certain times where a merchant is not required to require a PIN on a debit card purchase. There are amount limits. There are, if the merchant asks for a signature, sometimes the PIN can be waived. And one big one that people don't realize, or unless they've spent a lot of time using their debit card online transactions don't require the PIN. So if your debit card gets compromised and they have your 16 digits and your expiration date and the 3-digit card number on the back, CCV code, well, they can make all the online charges they want until you figure out that your debit card's been compromised. And now you're waiting for that money to go back into your checking account or your savings account. Whereas if they'd had compromised your credit card number, that money never came out of any of your accounts because you saw that on your monthly statement. You told the credit card company and they said, okay, we'll reverse all those charges. And so again, I make the analogy of, would you rather be at the blackjack table with your own money or the house money? I
That's a
prefer,
great analogy. And now that there's tap everywhere, even though mine is a debit card and I do use my debit card a lot, when you do the tap, they don't make you put the PIN in. And
correct.
almost everywhere has that now.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's another time so really a debit card is, not as, in my personal opinion, not as secure as an ATM card because the only way to use an ATM card is to put in the 5, 6, 7-digit code that you've chosen and hopefully you have memorized and you don't have written down on a sticky in your wallet taped to the back of your ATM card. Um, so that's just my personal take on, and I just put it out there as food for thought for people. Some people say, no, I'm keeping my debit card because it just keeps me knowing I'm only spending how much I have in my checking account. And again, I'm totally fine with that. I just wanted to put that out there for people to evaluate as a possibility of maybe going back to an ATM card for safety if they feel like that's something they would like
That's
to do.
Well, gosh, that was such great advice. And I'm going to write up on the show notes on YouTube if you want to check that out because it'll have all these tips written out. And remember, annualcreditreport.com.
Excellent. Excellent. All
Thank you
right.
so much. Well,
My
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it.
Tina said she always liked to finish with good news.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah.
I was reading through one of the alerts that I get today, and we had some good news well, let's see, the article's from December 18th. I believe it happened on December 10th. And I think most everybody that deals in scams always hears about the Nigerian scam,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's the Nigerian prince, the Nigerian romance scam, whatever. Well, in Lagos, Nigeria, which I believe is their largest city, it's not their capital, but it is their largest city. Their Economic and Financial Crimes Commission busted almost 800 suspects who were, it was an international cybercrime syndicate operating from a luxury building in Lagos, with evidence suggesting foreign operatives are using Nigeria as a base for sophisticated investment fraud schemes. Their Economic and Financial Crimes Commission apprehended 792 suspects on December 10th at the 7-story Big Leaf building in Victoria Island, including 148 Chinese nationals, 40 Filipinos, 1 Pakistani, and 1 Indonesian. The chairman of they have some pictures. And basically, just to give you a summary of what they found, foreigners are taking advantage of our nation's unfortunate reputation as a haven of frauds to establish a foothold here to disguise their atrocious criminal enterprises, one of their spokesmen said. Investigators found the building's 5th floor contained 500 SIM cards, which, as you guys know, are the little cards that go in the
Mm-hmm.
cell phone that allow them to work. Those were intended for criminal use. According to the EFCC, Nigerian accomplices were recruited based on, quote, proficiency in the use of computers, especially typing skill, and underwent 2 weeks of training to impersonate foreign females in romance scams. The scheme involved using WhatsApp accounts linked to German and Italian phone numbers to engage victims before directing them to a fraudulent investment platform. Quote, once the Nigerians are able to win the confidence of the would-be victims, the foreigners would take over the actual task of defrauding the victims, their spokesman said. So anyway, it's not going to stop, but every little bit helps. So hitting this thing in making arresting 792 people is going to put a hurt on that criminal organization.
Yeah, it sure will. That's good to hear. And I just want to remind people if they want to call in, they're worried they've been scammed, or maybe they even want to tell their story on Scam Squad, the number is 805-568-2442, and somebody will get back to you. Thank you so much. It was so great to have you on the show. And
Thank you.
you're
Thanks
going to
for
be
having
here
me.
for several more weeks, so
I
be
will.
sure
I
to
will.
tune back in.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
You have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.